I'm Gabrielle, and I have been a pastor since 2014.
And I'm Jen, and I've been a pastor for 20 years.
Brian, and I've been a pastor for 11 years.
Question number 1. Don't you only work one day a week? And what do you do besides Sunday?
I have actually been asked that question, mainly by youth kids who really, I didn't expect them to know. But it is, I think, one of my biggest challenges in ministry is helping people understand that it's a 24-hour, 7-day week job. I mean, you know, there's funerals, there's hospitals, there's all sorts of things. But what do I do? What do you do all week?
So I would say, like, the first thing is, how do you get to your worship service? There's stuff that happens leading up to it, so all the time that it takes to get there. So, you know, I don't just make up what I'm going to say in 15 minutes for a sermon on Sunday morning. I like to spend some time on that. So I'll spend at least a day in figuring that part out and writing out a sermon. So that's one day. There's administrative stuff, the stuff that I have to do to keep the church functioning, because there's lots of different ministries that we're doing in the church, from small groups to missional stuff. We host a bunch of organizations, so we got to make all that work together. And then there's the actual stuff that I'm doing in and amongst that stuff. So if we have small groups or missions that I am leading, that's another chunk of the day. So I mean, that's just like really basic stuff, along with weddings and funerals, emergencies, visiting people in the hospital, all those sorts of things. Yeah.
I only work one day a week. No.
But that day is Wednesday.
That day is Wednesday. Very, very similar to, I think, where all of you are. It's so much more than just Sunday mornings. So administration, handling the 3 a.m. phone calls or the 3 p.m. phone calls, and being a present in the community and finding ways to engage that way.
Yeah.
Question number 2. What are your duties in the denomination you serve?
Word, order, sacrament. No, part of what in our denomination, so we're all 3 of us are United Methodist, and part of our roles as elders or fully ordained pastors is not just to order the life of the church, but also to participate in denominational things. So I serve on a committee called Community Parish Relations Committee. So one of my duties is to work with a team to figure out how to better connect with local communities, in addition to meetings and how do I say this nicely? Or how do I say this well, I should say, submitting to my bishop and my district superintendent as they order my life as well.
So for our denomination, I serve on a board that actually oversees retirement and helps pastors and their spouses in retirement. So it's called the Centenary Fund and Preachers Aid Society. And my role on that is to raise money, ask for more money for the fund, but also try to raise awareness around it. So I'm looking for creative ways to raise awareness, and that's a responsibility we have to the larger church. And you know, a big challenge I face is helping my local congregation understand that what I do at a district or conference level or even a denominational level supports what they're doing at the local level. I think even our local congregations, they have a hard time understanding that these other committees we serve on are actually providing resources for them at the local level. So a lot of what I do is continuing to educate my congregation about who we are as a denomination and what we, what it means to be connectional. Excuse me.
Yeah, so I have a special role in our conference. I serve as a circa elder,
That means
And-
you get a horse, right?
I get a horse, I get to ride it around. No, so
Where's your
I
wing?
work with about 5 to 10 churches, and we go through coaching and like talking about what's happening in their local church. We'll meet together to discuss the larger strategy for the district and some of the ways that, some of the plans that we want to have, or specific things that we're doing to support the whole district. So sometimes, we did, just a couple weeks ago, we had foundational leadership training, and so we were organizing making sure that each local church has the basic tools to run their local church. And so, I did a special workshop for that. Things along those lines that, it takes about 20 to 30 hours in a month is what they expect from circuit elders. And so it's just this special role to support some specific local churches, working with them and encouraging them particularly encouraging the pastors in some of the work that they're doing in their local church. So that's just one thing that I've been doing unique in the last couple of years.
How do you pastor people in today's age of distraction?
So I would say there's two directions you can go. Some people would say like you do less and you encourage people to have like silence and contemplative stuff, and you do less things and say the church is sort of this set apart place where we're going to do it different from the world out there. I actually would take a different strategy. I would say lean into it. If people are really distracted, there's a way that you can like use what is already their natural instinct to further the work of the church, right? So if people have really short attention spans, why are you doing things that require a huge amount of attention for really long periods of time? Do shorter things and make more transitions.
Yeah.
So that, using a screen in worship in a way that helps to further your point, rather than people just naturally drifting off and looking out windows, right? Like, so it's plan for the intentional distraction that will help keep people engaged as you go through lots of different things, but all making one primary point all the way through.
Yeah, I'd say I sort of do the both and approach, because I do offer short-term Bible studies or small group studies or life studies. I've attempted a 39-year discipleship. 39 year.
39 years.
It only
Sometimes
feels like
feels
39
like
years.
that.
But I won't do like a 39-week study. I'll do a 4-week study or something like that, because people are so busy. But at the same time, like one of the things that I'll do Taizé prayer services. So a time of centering, and over the summer, our facility is located in the woods, and so I do forest bathing, and which is an opportunity. You're silent most of the time for the hour that you're walking through the woods, and so I do both, and hope that people will find the area that resonates with them.
Yeah, I think it's about showing up and finding people where they are. And so if people are distracted, what are they distracted by? So are you using social media well? Are you using the time you do have with people well? And then looking for ways to be able to break in. So I love coffee shops, and that tends to be a millennial thing, where we just are pretty obsessed with coffee shops.
I'm a Gen Xer, and I love coffee
See,
shops.
all right, so maybe
I think
it might be just a human thing. We just love coffee shops, right? Showing up and then being able to meet people in their distractedness, but also inviting them into spaces where we are quieter. I take a group every year to southeastern Kentucky to help rebuild homes. And the part that most people don't like is that there's no cell phone service. And the Wi-Fi is really, really bad. And so we actually pull people away for 1 week and just kind of mellow folks out. But we still meet them in their distractedness when we go home. Because I think it's a careful balance between the two.
Question number 4. What's the hardest part about being a pastor?
Well, I think for me that changes day to day or month to month. You know, right now where I'm struggling is that there's so much, we're in such a huge culture shift, and I really want to be the church that's relevant, that's out there in the world, that's really literally being Christ's hands and feet. And yet there's still so many people within the local church who are looking backward at how the church has been. And we're not that church anymore. And so, but how do I continue to pastor to them while I try to lead them into being this new church for a new generation?
Yeah, I think maybe the people's expectations, right? That the expectations can be so wide for what a pastor is supposed to be or what they're supposed to do. And in any situation or any encounter that you have with people, you don't even know what they expect you to be or do or say, right? Like some people want you to be really passive and give them space to, you know, figure things out, right? Or the exact opposite, that they want you to fill up all the space and do everything, right? You just don't know in any situation. And so that can be very draining to have expectations when you don't even, you don't know what the expectations are, and then trying to sort of meet people where they are and get things accomplished. That can be tough because maybe you're filling areas that are, it's not your giftedness, it's not your talent, but it's needed. So you go and do it anyways, and so you get drained and burned out from doing something that seems necessary, but maybe it's not your natural gifting or something like that.
Yeah, I would say yes to all of those things. But also for me, what's really difficult is the emotional toll that pastoring takes on us. Right? So we're called to love our congregations, and we do, and we pour so deeply into them, but at the same time we are expected to be able to take an objective role. And so, like funerals, when a beloved person in your congregation dies, and this is a person that you have walked with for their journey, and on one hand you are grieving their loss, and you are grieving with their families, and you are grieving with the loss of the church, and you're so excited about the fact that they're probably gonna go party with Jesus, but needing to maintain that space of I am grieving, but I'm not really supposed to show that. And so it's that the thing that's hardest for me about being a pastor is maintaining professional boundaries while also feeling so emotionally connected and in tune with folks. When I walk with, I had a family that lost a child, and that was a really difficult thing to walk alongside of that family with. And then one day in our denomination is itinerant, so we leave. And so you show up into these communities, and if you're like my experience, in the 6 years that I've been a pastor, I've moved 4 times. And I've shown up to every congregation with energy and passion and excitement and loved on people and built relationships and then left. And that leaving part can be really difficult because we are not immune to creating good, strong, meaningful relationships, and then to leave them behind and in many ways stop that journey with people that you care for, and re-pouring it back into another congregation can be really difficult.
Question number 5 is, how do you walk with people through hard times?
Well done.
I think for me, I am a presence for whatever people need. So sometimes folks just need someone to sit there and be quiet and to just do things, just kind of sit as people are mulling and projecting and processing. Sometimes, it's bringing a meal to someone or toilet paper. You never know how quickly you run out of toilet paper until you're like 800 people are at your house. Pastor, on your way over, do you think you could bring me some toilet paper? Sometimes it is speaking a reminder that this is not the end, and that you will be okay. Sometimes it's literally just being the silent presence of it's going to be okay, and I know it's hard, and I know that this is difficult, but I'm here with you. So that's the tactic I like to take in walking with people.
Yeah, that's the same thing. The ministry of presence. What I try to do is empty myself, so it's not about me. What you were sharing before about the funerals and and the people that we love deeply, and seeing them suffer, but then we also need to be the pastoral presence. And so there's a lot of just letting myself be empty and filled with the Holy Spirit. So my process is always about, begins with prayer and saying, God, just let me be the person that this family or this individual needs in this moment. And I think about Jeremiah and the coal on my lips, and you put the words that they need to hear in my mouth. And so we need to be still and silent in order to let the Spirit speak. And there's a wonderful ministry of the practical as well. And trying to just remember that they don't need answers. Unless they ask me specifically, I am never going to try to answer anything. But just to be there with them and be authentic with them. And to just let them feel their grief and feel their anger and whatever it is that they're feeling, to just honor that, and to let them know it's safe, it's okay to be feeling whatever they're feeling, that's normal.
Yeah, exactly. Helping someone be reflective of their emotions, what they're going through, allowing space for that to sort of bubble up and come out and share. I always remind people when there's when someone has died, there's no wrong way to grieve, and that what you're going through is unique to you, and no one tells you whether that's right or wrong, right? That's your grief is yours, and I always think it's important, especially if someone dies, that there's certain things that are true for humans, and one of them is taking time to mourn that loss, right? And like having ways to mark that. So I think the funeral or the memorial is really important in that processing the grief. So I always remind folks, like, I don't care if you do a service in my church or not, but do something. Even if you just gather the family together and have a conversation about this person, how much you love them, the things that you really liked about them, right? Like giving people that space to work out the things that they're thinking and feeling, I think is the most important thing we can do in the midst of someone who's grieving or someone who's gone through something traumatic. So.
How do you come up with topics, and how do you decide on what you're going to preach?
I reach into a hat and then I just
pull it out.
No. So I ask my congregation once a year. I have a little form that they can fill in, and I ask them, what are topics that you care about? What are things that you are asking about, or people are asking about? So tell me what those things are, and I bring all those things together, and then with that I sort of order it together. What are the things that are common here? Are multiple questions being asked at the same time in different ways or something? And I sort of order that out, and I actually try and throughout the next year try and address every one of those questions in one form or another. On top of it, I add particular areas where I think the congregation needs to hear sort of larger ideas, right? So we always want to have like something like evangelism, discipleship, basic things about our Christian walk, that those things are somewhere in that calendar year as I'm planning out the things that I'm preaching on. So that's the 10-7 version of how I do it.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I call it soliciting worship ideas. And it's an insert I put in my bulletin, and I put it out online. I email it to people to contribute. And, so I'll ask them a book of the Bible they would like to study, or hear more about. If they could ask, what's a question that they would ask, and then I use that to plan what sort of topics I'm going to address. And sometimes there's a lot of consistency in what all of, so that's one aspect. Also, just listening to the congregation, active listening and hearing the concerns that come up, and so I'll say, think about how could we address that, and then there are things that I want to talk about too, and so for instance, as a theatrical person, I love movies and superheroes, and so I'll do Doctor Who. So I've done different series on those things, which sometimes go over really well, and sometimes just flop, but that's okay. But I do try to do series where I'll try to really dig into one of the books of the Bible, and then I'll try to do something that's really topical to what we're dealing with in our community, and then one that's maybe related to the time of year, so maybe something Pentecostal, and what does that mean, and
Yeah, I have not solicited directly information from folks.
You haven't been there long enough.
No, I've never been anywhere long enough to ask those kinds of questions. But I like to listen to the congregation and hear what they start to talk about, or what are things that I think we need to hear. So right now I'm in the middle of a very long sermon series on who we are and what's our identity, and what does it mean to be part of this particular congregation, and what does it mean to be a part of the Christian denomination, and what does it mean to be a part of the world, because we were really struggling with our identity and how that played out. I also am a person who will go, that's really difficult. I really don't like thinking about this particular subject, so let me make a sermon series about it, because I think it helps me. And this is a little selfish, but I figure if I'm wrestling with it, somebody else is wrestling with it. And I do crazy things. Like I did an entire Lenten, which is the season leading up to Easter, so 6 weeks before that, on Star Wars. And I played Star Wars clips in church. And it was really awesome because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, and 99% of my congregation hated it. Which is fine. I did it anyway because we had like 6 people from the community who knew that we were doing Star Wars come in and specifically came to listen to us preach about Star Wars, which is pretty awesome. But it's a balancing act of what I think the congregation needs to hear, places in the world that I think that we're struggling, and then fun stuff, because we gotta throw the fun stuff in there. Church is supposed to be fun.
Rapid fire round. What's one thing you want the world to know about your job as a pastor?
It's the best job ever.
We matter.
There's 3 things that are amazing in being a pastor, and that is baptizing babies,
Yes.
doing weddings,
Yep.
and funerals at the end of a person's life. Getting to celebrate those key moments of life and the transition from this life. Nothing better than that.